with dignity and respect.
Please encourage your local representatives to protect U.S. citizens who choose to work or vacation on cruise ships. We need your help.
As we go to air tonight, we learned that there is a proposed settlement, between the bride of the so-called missing groom, George Smith, and his wife, along with the cruise ship. Let's go straight out to Leslie Snedowski. Leslie, we have here a press statement of Jennifer Hagel-Smith, and it is of a proposed settlement reached regarding the disappearance of George Allen Smith on Royal Caribbean Brilliance of the Seas. What do you know?
Well, unfortunately, we don't know much yet. We don't know about the details of this settlement, just that the Royal Caribbean wanted to settle, basically to let Jennifer move on emotionally and just settle the whole thing. But this has nothing to do with another case that was filed by the Smith family, and that suit alleges that Royal Caribbean intentionally covered up his disappearance to make it look like an accident where they still think foul play was involved.
Let's go straight out to George Smith's sister joining us tonight, also a lawyer herself. Bree, I know that the family is planning a lawsuit against the cruise ship industry, against Brilliance of the Seas, Royal Caribbean. Is this settlement with the bride, Jennifer Hagel-Smith, a surprise to you?
It's a complete surprise, and it's actually very concerning, Nancy, because Jennifer is proposing to settle the wrongful death suit, and she's a trustee of the estate, which covers my parents' interests. My parents did not even know that she was negotiating a settlement. They don't even know the terms of the settlement. Yet Jennifer's attorney sent us a fax today saying that Jennifer had reached a proposed settlement.
Oh, well, let's go out to Greg McCrary. He is the Royal Caribbean consultant. Greg, what can you tell us about this settlement with the bride?
I really don't know much about that at all. I'm really here to primarily talk about the lawsuit that is pending, that was filed today. So you've got a document I haven't seen, so you probably have more information than I have.
You know what? I've just gotten it, Greg. With us, Greg McCrary. He is the Royal Caribbean consultant. And Bree, I'm sure you've got it in your hands. I'll give you all what we know right now. This is a saga that has been going on for some time. As you know, 26-year-old George Smith went missing on a dream vacation aboard Brilliance of the Seas, one of Royal Caribbean's premier cruise ships. Well, all along, the family of George Smith feared there had been a cover-up. Explain, Bree.
Well, there has been a cover-up all along, and Nancy, I'm afraid that there's actually a second cover-up now that's by Jennifer Hagel. She's rushing to settle with Royal Caribbean without finding out what happened to my brother George. If the wrongful death went to trial, the wrongful death suit went to trial, and there were depositions taken, and it progressed along, we would be closer to knowing exactly what happened to my brother George. Instead, Jennifer, by trying to settle so early, is stopping that information flow, and this is awful to my family. Jennifer wants to move on with her life with a large payout, whereas my family want information as to what happened to George.
Question, Bree, how will Jennifer Hagel-Smith, the bride of the missing groom, settling the case with Royal Caribbean, and this does say Royal Caribbean will pay a financial settlement to Jennifer Hagel-Smith. It does say that. I'm reading it off page 1 of a press statement of Jennifer Hagel-Smith. So money is being changed hands. But how will her settlement affect a lawsuit or any type of action by his family?
Well, how it affects it, Nancy, is our individual claims, which are for intentional infliction of emotional distress and also for invasion of privacy, are different suits, and we will not be able to interview and have deposed the same witnesses as we would have been able to if the wrongful death case went. And as a result, Nancy, we will be challenging Jennifer's attempt to settle this case. We are not stopping. I don't know what Jennifer is hiding and what Royal Caribbean is hiding that they feel a need to settle this so quickly, but I know that my family are not going away. We will not be settling. We want the information that a lawsuit will provide, and we will continue.
Bree is with us. This is George's sister. Bree, okay, explain this again. What you're saying is your lawsuit was of a different nature of Jennifer Hagel-Smith's, and you were joining forces, so to speak?
Yes, Nancy, just for some background, for the past 9 months, Jennifer Hagel and her attorney had told us that we would be filing a joint lawsuit. It would be the wrongful death suit for which she's the administrator of the estate, and it would also be my parents and my own individual claims. Well, we were told several days ago that Jennifer would not be joining in our individual claims with the wrongful death suit because she said that her goal is to maximize the value of the estate, whereas our goal is to get information, so the interests of the parties conflict, and she would be filing separately.
Hold on. Bree?
Yes.
I've already alerted the viewers that you are a lawyer.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one strike against you. But when you say maximize the estate, that sounds like lawyer talk for get more money.
That's right, Nancy. She is trying to get as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, and there must be something very big that she's hiding, that she wants to settle this fast.
And I don't know if you've gotten this, Bree, but we can fax it to your studio where you are, because I got it as I was walking to the set. It also says, though, Jennifer Hagel-Smith will be permitted to review all relevant vessel logs, security reports, door activity with the lock link reports, photographs, security tapes, correspondence to and from the FBI and other law enforcement authorities. Now, okay, what am I hearing?
Well, the information that Jennifer will apparently be able to get is Royal Caribbean produced evidence that was not produced under oath. What we need, Nancy, is to get into court. We need sworn testimony. We don't want to rely on their statements that they produced in anticipation of litigation. We need sworn testimony. We've heard their spin for a year now. Now we want the truth.
This also says Hagel-Smith is creating a charitable foundation that will be in the name of her husband. It will be dedicated to his memory, that Royal Caribbean agrees to make a contribution to the organization. I don't know if the entire estate is going to become part of a charity.
Well, that's what I'd like to know, Nancy, because, you know, my family's not after money. I think that if Jennifer was not after money, then she would put every cent of that settlement into this, you know, new institute for my brother. However, something tells me that that's not what's going on here.
Let's go out to the lines. Joanne in North Carolina. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Nancy. I want to know why the family is objecting so much to Jennifer getting the money.
Good question. Hold on. I think that's another viewer that's trying to get in on the action in the background. Let's go to Bree. Did you hear that question?
Yes. The reason why is we need the information that would be provided through the discovery process of the suit. We haven't been given any information from Royal Caribbean. We haven't been given any information from the FBI. The only way for us to find out what happened to my brother is to get the information that would be provided through the lawsuit. So by Jennifer settling so early for money, my family will not be able to find out what happened to my brother almost a year ago today.
Take a listen to what another victim of cruise line crime has to say.
On October 20th, 2004, I was sexually assaulted in a ladies' restroom by a drunken passenger while another passenger took pictures and 2 Royal Caribbean employees watched and did nothing. I reported my crime. I reported it to the FBI. Royal Caribbean harassed me, continue to harass me, make false statements about me and about my situation in the media. And quite frankly, they've done everything possible to make me go away. When you have Royal Caribbean, or any cruise line for that matter, in charge of security, it's like having the fox watch the hen house. I believe that if I don't stand up and voice what happened to me, as well as what has happened to other passengers, including a 12-year-old girl who was raped aboard a cruise, a 15-year-old girl who was raped aboard a cruise. If these things were going on at Disneyland, Epcot, SeaWorld, MGM in Las Vegas, America would not stand for it.
Tonight we are highlighting the issue of cruise ship crime. As a part of that, breaking news, the bride of the so-called missing groom, Jennifer Hagel-Smith, apparently in the last few moments has reached a settlement a financial, a money settlement with Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. With us tonight, George Smith's sister, Bree, who is also an attorney. And this case has had far-reaching implications, all the way from the Mediterranean, where it happened, to Washington, D.C. Well, someone is brave enough to do something about cruise ship crime other than sweep it under the rug. Joining us tonight, Representative Christopher Shays from Connecticut. He was trying his best to make a difference. Representative, thank you for being with us.
Good to be with you.
Explain your legislation.
Well, we've had hearings now. We've had 2 since this case broke, and I'll just say that George Smith IV, his case is what really brought this before us. And what then happened was that other people watched our hearings and they stepped forward. People like Ken Carver, who lost his daughter on a ship, didn't know he lost his daughter on a ship. The ship knew. Carnival Cruise knew that she was missing, but never told any of her family members. And he had to find out by hiring a private eye to find out what happened to his child.
Incredible. Incredible. Bree, have you guys had to hire a private eye?
We are in the process of retaining Vito Colucci of Colucci Investigations in Stamford, Connecticut. We gave the FBI a year to solve the crime, but unfortunately, because of Royal Caribbean's contamination of the crime scene, that case still has not been solved. We're actually begging the viewers today, if you don't feel comfortable contacting the FBI or my family, please contact Vito Colucci. We need everyone's help. It's a year now that we've been going through agony, just trying to find out what happened to George. No family should have to go through this, and we beg you to either contact my family or Vito Colucci.
Speaking of Vito, he is with us tonight. Vito, when it comes to the George Smith case, what have you been able to do to further the investigation?
Well, what I've been doing up to this point, Nancy, I've just been assisting them over the last several months. I'm officially hired now to do my own investigation with my staff. And in saying that, we start from square one again, okay? We're going to be working parallel with the FBI. Different set of eyes and ears. As we obtain any information that's important, it'll be given that same day to the FBI to continue to help them out on their part. You know, this has been a sorry case. In meeting with the Smith family, I've had Mr. Smith, George Smith, walk into my office, and a simple question like, "How you doing today, George?" He breaks up and cries. So this has been a horrible situation, and now these events of the last several days has been terrible for them. But we'll get to the bottom of it, Nancy, I assure you that.
Let's go to the lines. Ken in California. Hi, Ken.
Yes, my question is, by Jennifer reaching a settlement, what does this say about her character? I mean, what does this say about a wife finding the truth about what happened to her husband? Does this some way make her look bad?
Well, you know what? In a way it does, but on the other hand, a lot of people have always speculated that Jennifer Hagel-Smith was out for money, but we don't know that. We don't know what she has been going through, what she has been suffering, how much she has cooperated with the authorities. It's all been kept very tightly guarded. What about it, Bree?
Well, all we know is that Jennifer apparently provided a wealth of information to the FBI, and she did not provide that information to my family. So we know that she has information about my brother's death that she has not provided to us. And that's very suspicious, Nancy. And now to reach a settlement, and to be perfectly frank with you, she told us all along that she did not want to be deposed. Now, why did she not want to be deposed, Nancy? What was her behavior that night that she wants to cover up so much? I hope that the FBI knows everything that she knows, and that her selective memory is not a figment of her imagination.
Now, she has also made the statement that in addition to suffering over the loss of her groom, that she has actually lost jobs over being part of this case. Response, Bree?
From what I understand, she is reemployed in Boston. She has moved on with her life.
When you say moved on with her life, what do you mean?
I mean,
got a new job?
She has a new job. She has a new car. She has a new apartment filled with my brother's things. You know, things are different for her than they definitely are for my family, who are fighting every day to find out what happened to my brother.
Quick break, everyone. With us tonight, the sister of the so-called missing groom, George Smith, and breaking news. As we go to air tonight, we learn of a proposed settlement between the bride of the missing groom, Jennifer Hagel-Smith, and the cruise line, Royal Caribbean. Liz, let's go to tonight's case alert. Police say surveillance video shows a car rented by Reno millionaire Darren Mack just down the street from a family court judge's office the very day the judge is shot in the chest. Darren Mack facing charges of attempted murder in the judge shooting and murder in the stabbing death of Mack's own wife. Meanwhile, a July 11 preliminary hearing set for Mack today. Mack's defense demanding a change of venue, claiming Mack cannot get a fair trial in his hometown, Washoe County.
Nancy Grace is brought to you by Travelers Insurance in Sync.
Your risks can change quickly. Make sure your insurance stays in sync. Travelers.
"17-inch alloy wheels, auto climate control, leather. It's the full package."
The special edition Mitsubishi Galant, only for a limited time, if you know where to go. Mitsubishi, driven to thrill.
Between my two phone bills, it's probably about $60 a month.
About $150.
Probably $100 a month.
With Vonage, you get unlimited calls to anywhere in the U.S. and Canada, and all the cool features you could ever want are included. And it's just $24.99 a month.
Call 1-800-399-5210. Go online or visit these fine retailers.
Vonage, leading the internet phone revolution.
Everyone wants a great-looking haircut, but keeping your hair looking the way you want between haircuts is a problem. Now there's Just a Trim. It's a totally redesigned trimmer that's compact and cordless, and it has the cutting edge on the side. So now you can trim hair as easily as you comb hair and get professional-looking results every time. Simply snap on a grooming guide to make it medium or trim it short. Plus, you get the professional edge you need for trimming sideburns, beards, and even the back of your neck. Barbershop perfect. No time for a haircut? Don't worry. With Just a Trim, you can stay looking sharp for a few more weeks. Call now and get Just a Trim, a $30 value for only $14.99. Plus, you'll receive our deluxe 10-piece grooming kit, a $20 value absolutely free. You get it all. An incredible $50 value, all for only $14.99.
To order Just a Trim, call 1-800-306-5600. That's 1-800-306-5600. Call now.
My brother George was 26 years old when he was murdered on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship.
They've shown us they will cover up crimes at any cost.
They should not have the option to do what they feel. There has to be laws out there that make Royal Caribbean and the other cruise lines follow a set pattern of what is done when a person goes missing and possibly murdered.
Welcome back, everyone. Breaking news. As we go to air tonight, we are just learning that there is a proposed settlement in the so-called missing groom case. The settlement is between Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, their premier ship, Brilliance of the Seas, and the wife of the missing groom, Jennifer Hagel-Smith. It is a money settlement. Royal Caribbean will pay a financial settlement. They are creating a charitable foundation, Hagel-Smith is, in the name of George Smith. Royal Caribbean agrees to make a donation. What are the terms of the settlement? How much money is on the table? And why? Is this in some way to head off a lawsuit by George Smith's family? All of those questions aside, with us tonight is a very special guest, Representative Christopher Shays out of Connecticut. He is a congressman in that jurisdiction who has introduced a bill to protect American citizens on cruise lines all over the world. Again, thank you for being with us, sir. What do you specifically hope to achieve with the legislation you introduced?
Well, first off, we want to have a better sense of what kind of problem exists out in the high seas. For instance, the cruise industry tell us there are about 57 assaults every year. We don't know if that's an accurate statistic or not. So what we do is we require that they provide statistics quarterly to the Department of Homeland Security. We require that they have people capable to investigate crimes and they have the proper equipment necessary to investigate those crimes. And we require, finally, that within 4 hours of any crime being committed involving an American citizen, that U.S. authorities are notified so that if the U.S. authorities want to, they can step in and investigate.
Representative, from so many people all around the country, thank you. Thank you very much for what you are doing in Washington. Joining us now, maritime attorney Jeffrey Maltzman. Jeff, how do you respond to allegations that Royal Caribbean is trying to cover up?
Well, Nancy, thank you for having me on. Frankly, it doesn't surprise me that the case is settled. From everything I've seen and all the facts that I think have come out over the last year, it appears as though the company did everything they could to assist Jennifer from the minute this incident first happened. They had security officers and a female guest relations officer accompanying Jennifer as she went through the investigative process. They sealed off the crime scene. They contacted the FBI. They contacted the Turkish police. So it wouldn't surprise me that Jennifer, who was there on the scene and able to see what Royal Caribbean did, recognizes that Royal Caribbean isn't to blame and wants to settle the case.
Victims of crime on cruise ships and those who've lost loved ones under mysterious circumstances have been unable to obtain justice due to complex jurisdictional issues and a lack of accountability. This legislation takes important steps to address those barriers. First, it requires that crimes against Americans on board cruise ships must be promptly reported to authorities within 4 hours and provides penalties for failure to make those reports. It also requires that sufficient procedures and equipment be in place to conduct investigation of crimes so that crucial evidence is not lost due to delays, ineptitude, or lack of necessary equipment.
We know responsibility is a round-the-clock job, but if your home is ever damaged by fire, we have help standing by 24 hours a day. Responsibility. What's your policy? Liberty Mutual.
Take the Hyundai Challenge during the Hyundai Challenge Summer Clearance. Test drive the sedan that beats Honda Accord, the new Hyundai Sonata, with more standard safety features and interior space than Accord. The Sonata also offers great fuel mileage. And, like every Hyundai, it comes with America's best warranty. There's never been a better time to save thousands during the Hyundai Challenge Summer Clearance. Get $2,500 cash back on Sonata, only at your Hyundai dealer. Offer ends July 4th.
No rolling luggage. That's why Geico.com is so simple. Or is it because you can chat with an associate if you need help and get a free rate quote in minutes? 15 minutes could save you 15% on car insurance. Simple as that.
We gotta be more efficient. What would Shuford do?
We gotta think big. What would Carter Litwin do?
What would Watkins Worldwide do?
We've got to be more nimble. What would those guys at Hornstein do?
Visa helps make businesses of any size more efficient. Whether your company's big,
I got it,
or just your ideas are. Your business is your life. Life takes Visa.
The odds of a child being in a fatal automobile accident are 1 in 23,000. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 166. The odds say it's time to listen. To learn the signs of autism, visit autismspeaks.org.
I
I lost my husband, George, during our honeymoon cruise last summer on July 5th.
We believe he was murdered on his honeymoon with a lifetime of happiness and a promising future ahead of him.
We keep going because we're searching for justice for George.
We have to find out what happened to George, and it will not go unsolved.
Breaking news tonight, we have just learned that the bride of the so-called missing groom, Jennifer Hagel-Smith, has reached a settlement, a money settlement with Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, whose premier ship, Brilliance of the Seas, was the ship on which George and Jennifer Hagel-Smith embarked on their honeymoon. Straight out to Bree Smith, who is joining us. This is George's sister. Do you plan, Bree, to challenge this settlement?
Yes, we do. And Nancy, I actually have several comments from Mr. Maltzman. The first of which is, if your company did nothing wrong, why are you paying Jennifer Hagel anything? My second comment is, according to the facts that we just received, it says the information will be provided upon completion of the settlement. Why do we have to settle with your company in order to get information as to what happened to my brother on that ship? You should be forthcoming with that information so my family can find out who murdered George and get justice for him.
Peace of mind and all-wheel drive in every car. It's what makes a Subaru a Subaru. At $199 a month and zero due at signing, the Subaru Impreza makes safety more affordable.
American Standard, heating and air conditioning.
Larry King tonight, exclusive. Star Jones Reynolds' first TV interview since her abrupt departure from The View that left Barbara Walters feeling betrayed. Star Jones Reynolds takes your calls. Larry King exclusive, tonight 9 Eastern, only on CNN.
Keep watching Nancy Grace. She's right here, inside Headline Prime.
There's so much to do, so much to see. There's nowhere that I'd rather be than Philly. Cause Philly's more fun. There's music and there's drama. Everybody wears pajamas here in Philly. Cause Philly's more fun. There's no stopping when there's great shopping like this. And fine dining you won't want to miss. Because Philly's more fun when you sleep over. Book our 2-night package any day of the week and see why Philly's more fun when you sleep over.
Selling your car, truck, or motorcycle can be a nightmare. But with Big Bucks Auto, it's easy.
Call 888-44-BUCKS.
Go to BigBucksAuto.com.
Drive in for your free cash appraisal, and we'll buy your car within 20 minutes.
Even if it's leased or financed.
We do all the paperwork. It's simple.
No costly ads or psychos coming to your home, no bait and switch trade-ins, and not knowing what you're really getting for your car.
Don't sell or trade your vehicle until you call Big Bucks Auto. 888-44-BUCKS.
Hurricane Katrina revealed both the generosity of the American people and the resiliency of American business.
If you're a small business owner, it's essential to you and your community to get up and running quickly after any disaster.
Planning ahead can make a real difference. We urge you to visit ready.gov for free tools to help create an affordable emergency preparedness plan.
Because the faster you're back in business, the better for all of us.
Eastern.
They clearly don't cooperate, and what that tells you is the cruise line industry is more interested in just kind of getting rid of it instead of dealing with it. Sadly, if you want to commit the perfect crime, it may be that's where you do it, on a ship.
Breaking news tonight, we have just learned that the bride of the so-called missing groom, her name Jennifer Hagel-Smith, has reached a money settlement with Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. One of their premier ships, Brilliance of the Seas, is the ship on which these two planned a dream honeymoon throughout the Mediterranean. He went missing. Was there wrongdoing on behalf of the cruise ship industry? Was there a cover-up? Those questions may go unanswered now as a result of this settlement. But what's to stop a grieving widow from reaching a settlement? We have just received confirmation from Royal Caribbean announcing the settlement with Jennifer Hagel-Smith. So it is confirmed. Interesting, in the announcement from Royal Caribbean, it clearly states the terms of the settlement are subject to approval by a Connecticut probate court. With us here, Bree Smith. She vows to fight this settlement. But why exactly are you opposed to the settlement with the bride?
The bride is settling as administrator of the estate. And as administrator of the estate, she has control over my parents' claims under my brother's estate. So by her settling, Nancy, that means that she's settling my parents' claims under the wrongful death suit as well, which precludes my parents from finding out the information that would have been available if the wrongful death suit had gotten to court, such as sworn testimony, which is what we need in order to find out what happened to George.
Let's go out to Jeffrey Maltzman, maritime attorney. In response to the claims by Bree Smith, George's sister?
Well, first off, Bree, I don't want to debate you on this. My heart goes out to you and your family. I know you've suffered an inconsolable loss. I don't work for Royal Caribbean. I don't know why you're angry at me or, frankly, the cruise line. It's the FBI's job to figure out if a crime has happened here. It's not a cruise line's job to be CSI and try to figure those types of things out. And frankly, most people who hear the facts and story that's come out over the last year don't assume that a murder or a crime did occur.
Why, Jeffrey? I'll step in because I find it very unusual that there's blood inside the stateroom. He fell or was pushed off the balcony, clearly, and the door was closed.
Well, Nancy, Nancy, I don't know how you can say clearly. First of all, it's my understanding.
Well, that is what the
Nancy,
Royal Caribbean consultant who was with us tonight told me on air.
Nancy,
that's why I say it. Do you
Nancy,
deny it?
Nancy, let me respond to your first question first. First off, the blood that you talk about in the room, and of course I've not been in the room, but whatever small amount of blood that was there was apparently a small enough amount that Jennifer Smith, when she woke up in the cabin, didn't notice it, that the Royal Caribbean employees who helped Jennifer Smith back to her cabin and took her to her cabin that evening didn't notice it. So this wasn't a bloody crime scene or anything like that. You know, people do things on vacation. People drink. People have to be responsible for their own actions. I'm not going to say a crime didn't occur. I'm not going to say a crime did occur. But most people who hear these facts, I don't believe, are going to jump to the conclusion that there was a murder on board that ship.
Nancy, can I cut in here, please? I think that's a completely false statement. I think the vast majority of Americans and people worldwide think that a murder was committed on that night. And Mr. Maltzman can talk and lie through his teeth about the fact there were not any suspicious circumstances, but we know differently. The FBI has a very open and active investigation still. And millions of dollars are currently being spent on this, and it's all because Royal Caribbean did not seal off that crime scene like they said they would. They contaminated it, so when the FBI finally got on board, they had a very difficult job getting the evidence they need to prosecute this crime.
Nancy, it's very easy to make allegations in the press. It's very easy to make allegations in a lawsuit. It's more difficult to prove the facts in a court of law. And I think the facts will speak for themselves.
I got a question, guys, and this is to Bree. Bree, you state that many, many people believe a murder was committed. Just give me, in a nutshell, why you, I know you believe that, but why? What evidence do you know, Bree, that supports your allegation that a murder went down?
Well, the evidence is so far-reaching, Nancy. First of all, there was more blood in the cabin than Mr. Maltzman would like to admit. We have crime scene photos. Additionally, there was a substantial amount of blood on the overhang. There were also sounds of fighting coming from that cabin. We know that 3 of the 4 individuals that brought my brother back to his cabin have taken the Fifth Amendment. I mean, read the writing on the wall, Mr. Maltzman. It doesn't take a genius.
Well, frankly, I don't understand what relevance blood on the overhang has. If somebody falls off a balcony and strikes the overhang, they're going to bleed.
What about the argument that ensued just before he went missing? A giant thud, raised voices, and now he's dead?
Well, I've heard reports of an argument. I've heard the passenger in the cabin right next door on the media saying that what he heard sounded like loud partying. I've heard sounds that sounded like thuds and furniture being moved, but it's unclear whether that was being done by George alone in the room or George with other people in the room. And I certainly wasn't there. And
well, even if there was a murder, I would assume that someone else was in the room.
If there was a murder in the room, I would certainly hope that the police could solve it. And I believe from everything I've seen and heard that what Royal Caribbean did, sealing off the cabin, calling the FBI, calling the Turkish police, calling the U.S. State Department, all within an hour, was completely and fully
appropriate. Okay, hold on.
Nancy.
Go ahead, Vito.
Nancy, you know, Mr. Salzman is talking about allegations we're making. We're not making allegations. We were reading from Royal Caribbean's own report that 7 of their officials walked through that cabin, untrained officials taking pictures, okay? They gathered up all the clothes. How about trace evidence of any blood? And he's saying, these are not allegations, Nancy. These is from Royal Caribbean's book on what they did. And then to have a captain say that Mr. Smith bumped his nose, got a bloody nose, walked outside for air. This is a good investigation. In my 30 years of police and private detective, this is a horrible. 7 people walked around that cabin with a little camera taking pictures on the crime scene. That's not allegations. That's what happened, Nancy.
And that happened after the FBI was there and after the Turkish police were there.
To Greg McCrary with the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line consultant. Greg, isn't it true that the captain of the ship deemed this to be an accident?
I believe that was his opinion, and certainly, really, his opinion doesn't matter. What he thinks doesn't matter.
The ship's captain doesn't matter?
Nancy, no, his opinion about what happened in there doesn't matter. What matters are because what counts are the facts and what the criminal investigation shows. What you think and what I think and what Bree thinks, none of that matters. What matters are the facts.
But he's in charge of the ship and the investigation.
Well, that doesn't give him clairvoyant powers to know what happened.
That's like saying that what the chief of police says doesn't matter. That's a disconnect. That's not making any sense.
No. What the chief of police was the deputy chief, Clete Hyman, is a witness. What he says is very important. What he heard, what he said he heard, those things are important. The captain wasn't there. Now, he's entitled to his opinion, but that doesn't mean that that's, that's what happened. What we have to do is concentrate on the facts. The other thing I would say to Bree, briefly, if she is convinced, and apparently she is, that this is a murder and a cover-up, covering up a homicide is a felony. It would be a federal felony in this case. Tampering with evidence, obstruction of justice, misprision of a felony. She has any of that information. She needs to make it available to the FBI right away because they need to investigate that.
Very
and
quickly
they haven't been
to
investigating
Jeffrey Maltzman, who is a maritime attorney. If no crime was committed, if there was no wrongdoing, why settle?
Well, why settle? For lots of reasons. I mean, lots of different cases get brought by lots of different people. It's obvious that Jennifer...
that's not what I asked you.
It's obvious that Jennifer, from what we've heard in the media, felt that the company should have and could have done more to try to assist her. I think there's lots of reasons to try to reach an amicable resolution.
Settle? If you keep claiming there was no wrongdoing, no negligence, why settle?
Nancy, many lawsuits don't have merit. Only one side can win, but 98% of all lawsuits settle. I wasn't involved in these negotiations. I'm not going to answer that.
Ray, why did Royal Caribbean settle this, and why was it kept secret from the family?
Nancy, it's good tactics on their part. You want to divide and conquer. I agree with Bree. Her case and her family's case would have been stronger if it had been filed in tandem with the wife's case. They could share discovery, resources, tactics, but the insurance company or the cruise line decided to buy half of this case out. Tactically, they did the right thing. Smart business.
everybody. I'm Rochelle Carey with your Headline Prime News Break. The alleged terrorist plot targeting Chicago's Sears Tower reportedly included plans to bomb 5 FBI buildings. A federal prosecutor says one suspect admits to swearing allegiance to al-Qaeda. That suspect appeared in a courtroom in Atlanta today. The judge ordered him held without bond, then transferred him to Miami to stand trial. If you're borrowing money, brace yourself. The Federal Reserve raised a key lending rate by a quarter point to 5.25%. It is the central bank's 17th consecutive rate hike, but stocks soared today because investors believe the Fed indicated it's at least considering a pause in all those rate hikes. And 11 and 12-year-old girls should be routinely vaccinated against the sexually transmitted virus that causes cervical cancer. That is the recommendation of an influential government advisory panel. The FDA recently approved this vaccine. Scientists say it's most effective when given before girls become sexually active. That's the news for now. Thanks for watching. I'm Rochelle Carey.
The Mercury Mariner is the SUV that proves you don't have to give up anything to get everything. Setting new trends with unexpected touches everywhere you look. With the Mariner Hybrid, you'll save at the pump and help the environment, too. The compact SUV has never been in better shape. Mercury Mariner. Now get Mercury Mariner, a Consumer's Digest Best Buy, 2 years running at this great rate. You gotta put Mercury on your list.
Park your car in the sun for a couple of hours, and it doesn't just get hot. It gets sizzling hot, blistering hot, too hot to get into. But now, the same sun that makes your car unbearably hot can keep it cool and comfortable with the amazing AutoCool, the ingenious solar-powered ventilation system that keeps cars cool, no matter how long they're left in the sun. Here's why. Sunlight captured by the solar panel powers a powerful microventilation system, pulling the stifling heat out and keeping the inside cool. It's ready to use right out of the box, complete with weather stripping to keep your car watertight and ventilated at the same time. All you do is place the solar AutoCool on the window and roll it up. That's it. Nothing to plug in. And AutoCool stores right in your glove compartment, so it's always ready whenever you need it. Look, 2 identical cars parked at the same time at the same place. After 2 hours, the interior temperature in this car is a stifling 107 degrees. But inside the AutoCool car, it's a comfortable 75. So now when you get into your parked car, it's already cool and comfortable. So much better for you, your family, and your pets. So stop putting yourself in the hot seat over and over again. Call now and get the AutoCool, a $40 value for only $14.99, and you'll never have to get into a blistering hot car ever again. Plus, you'll also receive our clever cup holder caddy, a $15 value absolutely free. It instantly transforms the extra cup holder in your car into an easy-to-reach organizer, keeping your cell phone, notepads, pens, and coins all within easy reach. Yes, you get both, the amazing AutoCool and the cup holder caddy, a $55 value for just $14.99. This offer is not available in stores, so call now.
To order your AutoCool, call 1-800-961-1835. That's 1-800-961-1835. Don't delay. Call now at 1-800-961-1835.
That guy with his inappropriate questions.
You trust your husband?
And smart comebacks.
Move on, people.
Glenn Beck is that guy on Headline News Prime, coming up next.
I lost my husband, George, during our honeymoon cruise last summer on July 5th. When the shock wore off and the enormity of his loss set in, we quickly learned that this was not an isolated event. We were not alone. In fact, I am standing here today with other victims who have their own stories to tell. And though every tragic story is different, each victim shares a similar thread of frustration and sadness.
Breaking news, that lady, the groom of the bride of the so-called missing groom, has reached a money settlement. We have just learned as we go to air tonight, we have just received confirmation from Royal Caribbean Cruise Line confirming that money settlement. Straight out to Bree Smith, George Smith's sister. The family had a lawsuit pending, which was going along hand in hand with Jennifer Hagel-Smith's lawsuit. Do you really believe that her settlement is going to ice your case? Is it over?
No, I don't think it's over. We are going to fight to make sure that that proceeds. That's how we can get information as to what happened to George, and we care what happened about George, and we will continue to fight for him. I have a challenge for Royal Caribbean, Nancy. We actually filed our individual claims today. Standard procedure for Royal Caribbean and the other cruise lines is to move to dismiss the suit so that they don't even have to ever go to court, so that people won't know what they did wrong. Well, I challenge them in our case not to move to dismiss these claims. We want you to swear under oath what you say in your media press releases and on television. We want to know that under oath these statements are true, because to be quite frank, they change every time they speak.
To Nicole DeBoer, veteran defense attorney, do you think there's a snowball's chance in Miami that will ever happen?
I think this case gets more and more difficult to solve as time goes on. Lawsuit settlement or no lawsuit settlement, as the case ages, you lose physical evidence, you lose eyewitness ability to recall. There are a variety of reasons why, unfortunately, as time passes, the true answers to this case become less likely to find.
Tell it, sister. Ray Giudice, the oldest case I ever had to put together was 14 years old. That is very difficult to do. Nicole is right. The longer it takes, the more difficult it will be to solve the case. That's
Nancy,
a fact.
In some regards, the Smith family may have been better off filing this lawsuit a long time ago, when depositions, which aren't going to take place for 5-6 months in the discovery period, that testimony would be 6 months old instead of a year and a half old. However, I mean, it's their lawsuit and they can do what they like. I can't control that, but the faster the better for the plaintiffs, because witnesses' statements and evidence, and we've all seen it in criminal cases, it's no different in civil cases. Memories fade.
And the anniversary of the day George Smith went missing, the so-called missing groom, is July 5. Out to Bethany Marshall. Bethany, what do you make of the settlement?
Well, I think it's important to note that just because she's settling for money doesn't mean that she does not care about her deceased husband. Making a settlement and not caring are two different things. And also, well, first of all, because that would mean that everyone who settles a wrongful death lawsuit doesn't care about the deceased relative, and that's simply not the case. But also, everybody grieves in different ways, and the family of George Smith wants to make meaning out of his death, protect other people in these kinds of situations, and they want to know what happened, and they have a right to, and that's what's meaningful for them. But for Jennifer, what might be meaningful to her is to establish a new life and move on.
Response, Bree?
How can she move on with her new life when she doesn't know how her husband of 10 days was murdered? That's my response. Why does she not want to know what happened to George?
Well, you know, Bree, do you believe that she does know? Do you believe the FBI or possibly Royal Caribbean has told her information that has been withheld from you?
Well, all I know is, like I said, Nancy, that she provided information to the FBI that she did not provide to us. You would think that she would provide this information to the sister and the parents of a missing person, but she didn't. You know, 1 minute it's selective memory, the next minute it's some supposed FBI gag order that we were told didn't actually exist. So we don't know what she knows that we don't know, but we would like that information, and that would have come out in the wrongful death suit. But
Did you know this was happening? Did you know about the settlement?
No, that's actually what's so awful, because she's actually a beneficiary of the interest of my parents, and in negotiating with Royal Caribbean, she never even told my parents that she was negotiating a settlement.
When did you learn about the settlement?
Today.
Cruise line crime, Clark.
It's hard to believe, Nancy, but since we changed into Y2K, 2001, 2002, 3, 4, 5, just 305 crimes reported to the FBI. Of that, almost half sexual assault, 20% assault, and 10%, that's over 30 people, have gone missing on cruise ships. And you know, of course, Nancy, cruise ship crime is notoriously underreported. It may change with this new law.
Let's go to the lines. Jerry in Indiana. Hi, Jerry.
Hi. What I'd like to know is if they've been married for such a short period of time, could you get an annulment so that the parents could stay in the suit?
Interesting legal question. Ray Giudice?
As wife, she is the trustee, the administratrix of the estate. She has the absolute authority to settle this case. As Bree was saying, I think the only right they have to challenge will be in front of the probate court in the state where the case will be settled, which I believe is Connecticut, where they can raise the parents' interests. However, I do not think that will be successful, but obviously that's Bree's
I don't know about that. I don't know if a probate court is going to be so willing to cut off an entire family's interest in a lawsuit settlement. We'll see about that. I predict a probate battle. Catherine in South Carolina. Hi, Catherine.
Hello. I'm wondering about, didn't Jennifer hire Dr. Henry Lee to investigate the crime scene? And I'm wondering if he finished investigating and what he found.
I'll throw that straight to Bree. Bree, what do you know about that?
Well, Dr. Lee was retained. Unfortunately, by the time Dr. Lee did get on the boat, which was numerous months after my brother was killed, most of the evidence was already gone. So, you know, although he's the best in the world and we can't thank him enough for what he's done for my family, unfortunately, what was left at the crime scene was very minimal.
And I want to reiterate, there is another facet here to the settlement. Hagel-Smith is continuing to offer a reward of $100,000 for information regarding circumstances surrounding George Smith's death. We will stay on the case as well. Stay with us.
Nancy Grace is brought to you by Honda Certified Used Cars. Great value and all the reliability of a Honda.
It has a legendary reputation for reliability, durability, and quality. It's been named to Car and Driver's 10 Best list 20 times. It was the first gasoline-powered production automobile to be certified as a low-emission vehicle in the U.S. And the best part is, it's used. Proof that how you start out in life is a good indication of how far you'll go. Honda Certified Used Cars. See, it may be used, but it's still a Honda.
It may seem intimidating, but really, it's one of the easiest things you can ever do. I've been practicing.
Good. You're gonna need it.
Help America's youth. Be a friend. Be a mentor. Just be there.
Go to bigbrothersbigsisters.org.
America's favorite home gym is more affordable than ever. Now you can get the all-new Bowflex Extreme for just $19 a month. Call the number on your screen for a free DVD or video and check it out. Bowflex's Power Rod technology delivers results. Powerful arms, defined legs, a stronger chest, and a toned, sexy core. And owning a Bowflex home gym is so affordable. Great results are easy with a new Extreme. All it takes is one simple workout, 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week, to get in the best shape of your life. The Extreme is built so well that we back it with an unrivaled 7-year warranty. And so effective, it comes with Bowflex's 100% satisfaction guarantee. Own the Extreme with no money down and payments of just $19 a month. And when you call right now, we'll give you the leg attachment upgrade free. Call for a free DVD or order your Bowflex Extreme for only $19 a month. And for a limited time, get the leg attachment free.
Hi, I'm John Scherer, CEO and founder of Video Professor. Well, I'm the one that makes computer learning quick and easy with these CD-ROM lessons from Video Professor. I'm so confident that my product will work for you that I'm going to send you any one of our $80 lessons absolutely free. If you're serious about learning to run the computer once and for all, try my product.
To get your free computer learning CD, you must call now. Call 1-800-306-5500.
Closed captioning provided by Head On. Head On applied directly to the forehead.
Head On, applied directly to the forehead. Head On, applied directly to the forehead. Head On, applied directly to the forehead. Head On, available at Walgreens.
Let's all celebrate July the 4th by going out and burning the flag. Yeah, you heard me, and according to our Congress, it's A-OK. Let's go out to Bill Schneider, CNN's senior political analyst. Bill, what's going on in Washington?
Well, what's going on is that an amendment to the Constitution, which would have allowed Congress, would have given Congress the power to prohibit the desecration of the United States flag, was brought up in the Senate of the United States. It needed a 2/3 majority. It got 66 votes, which was 1 vote shy of the majority it would have needed to pass. It passed the House of Representatives by a 2/3 majority last year. If it had gotten 67 votes in the Senate, it would have gone to the states. Very likely, 3/4 of the states would have ratified the amendment, and it would have been in the Constitution, so Congress could ban flag burning. But now it lives to fight another day.
You know, if I had heard it anywhere else but from Bill Schneider, I wouldn't believe it. Clark, what can you burn in America?
Well, here's what you can't burn in America, Nance. You can't burn U.S. currency. That's a big no-no. A cross if you're trying to scare someone. Mail. You can't burn that. That's illegal, destroying mail. And trash. So you can't burn trash, but you can burn the flag.
So you can burn the flag, but you
don't do
can't
that.
burn a dollar
Yeah.
bill. Congress, come and get me. Can you believe that? On the eve of July the 4th, you can burn the American flag. If Bill Schneider hadn't told me, I wouldn't believe it. Tonight, we remember Marine Private First Class Ryan Winslow, 19, killed Iraq. He hails from Jefferson, Alabama, and leaves behind a mother, father, and sister. He dreamed of joining the police narcotics SWAT team. Ryan G. Winslow, 19, American hero. Thank you for being with us tonight, inviting us into your homes. Good night from the New York control room, and a special good night from our littlest crime fighter, our EP's new baby, Luke Sicoli, who recently took the rap for his daddy's illegal right turn. Nancy Grace signing off for tonight. See you here tomorrow night, 8 o'clock sharp Eastern, as we head into July the
Smith family files a lawsuit against the cruise line on the same day his bride settles with them. The Smiths